All right. Well, it's so good to see you all this morning. Are you guys seeing it now? Are we live?
Yes, we are actually
go into it all again. Oh, that's so fun. All right. Well, I'm really excited to have Cass from Clutterbug with me and also Dana from A Slob Comes Clean. We've been sharing a little bit about the course that we've put together. So we'll touch on that this morning. But we have to talk about Cass's cleaning costumes because this is taking cleaning to like a whole new level, which is so fun. But also because we have Dana here from A Slob Comes Clean, we want to talk about decluttering the really hard stuff because that is definitely Dana's forte. And she just has some really great ideas in that area. So real quick, we did create a course called Take Your House Back. I made some props. It can be found at takeyourhouseback.com. And right now we have a code for $20 off if you use early bird 20. Wow, this is harder than it looks. But here's what's so cool about the course and what I'm just so excited about, and then I really will let you guys talk too. But you know, a lot of times people have asked if I would ever create a course, and I think what hung me up is that I knew if I made a course and I asked you to pay money for it, it needed to have something new that you just couldn't get from all my YouTube videos, right? Because otherwise I couldn't charge you for that. And as I thought about it more, the decluttering methods and a lot of the tactics I've been using and promoting, you've been hearing me talk about, have been Dana's from A Slob Comes Clean. And I've also developed like such a new appreciation for organizing from Cass, because she's the first one that I feel like actually understands me and how I organize or don't organize. And so we just had this idea to kind of put our heads together and really create like a game plan for you to take your house back. And I just want to let you know that we approached this from the standpoint of people who have failed in the past, who have felt like losers about their house, who have tried everything, and who don't have a lot of time or energy to put into this. We know you work full time, you have young kids, you have chronic fatigue, you have ADD, you're caring for adult parents. I mean, any number of things that makes it really hard for you to find big chunks of time to declutter. We totally get that. And so everything in here is put through that lens so that you will be successful. Like, we are not gonna set you up to be a failure again. Like, that was so important to us. Like, it had to be a way that you are going to succeed at it. So again, takeyourhouseback.com, early bird 20 for $20 off right now, which makes the course $79 in US monies. So did you guys want to say anything else before we like talk about the elephant in the room, which is Cass's dress?
I do want to say with the code, technically we had said it was through when the course technically opens, which is tomorrow, but we did decide to extend it through Sunday night because we know that that's kind of like the real end of the weirdness of the holiday day. So yeah, that's the end of the early bird 20. So just make sure you know about that at takeyourhouseback.com.
Yes. Awesome.
So, okay, well, Cass.
Cass, we were visiting a little bit last night, and one of the things we were talking about is like, how do we get into cleaning routines and stick with them and do that? And you had a great idea.
I wore this, I felt pressure to wear this dress.
It surprised us all. Yeah, we were completely surprised by this idea, so go for it.
Okay, so anyways, it's boring cleaning your house. And what I found was I always was cleaning my house in my pajamas, and when I wear my pajamas, I want to go back to bed, you know, and nobody likes cleaning. So I started wearing an apron, which motivated me, like I was a cleaning company to clean. And then I saw this video on YouTube. Somebody was cleaning their house as a 1950 housewife. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to embrace it. I want to play pretend. I want to pretend I enjoy this and use a feather duster and make this fun. So I went on Amazon and I bought a couple 1950s housewife dresses with the petticoat.
Oh my
so
goodness.
Fun. They're $30. I would never wear them in public. They are to clean toilets in, my friends. And I put on bright lipstick and pearls.
I love it.
You do what you got to do to make it fun, make it, because it isn't.
Well, and let's face it, $30. I mean, hiring a person to come clean for 1 hour in your house would be more than $30. So,
right.
Wise investment.
You don't have to wear the dress, but I do think an apron, it does
Mhm.
something to your mindset. It's like, it's cleaning time. It's like your
Yeah.
body's like, I'm wearing an apron, it means business. It's like
Yeah.
you put your uniform on.
Yeah.
And I'm more motivated to actually do the stuff that I don't want to do.
Well, and especially if we're trying to start some new habits in the new year, sometimes we needed something different, right? Like something has to be different this year. And so if it is putting an apron on, or actually like getting dressed down to your shoes, or even like creating a cleaning caddy that you're going to take with you from room to room, like I think that's so good. Like do something different so it feels different this year.
To kind of break the momentum that you had going
Exactly.
and set it in a different direction. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I
like
think that's awesome.
We've
Well,
also
Dana,
dressed as superheroes before. So if you have a cape, you put it on. Super mom.
cleaning cape. Mhm.
That's awesome. Well, Dana, I think for a lot of us, you know, we can get through some of the easy clutter in our house, like the clothes we're clearly not wearing, the dishes we don't use. But then we get to the stuff that's tougher, the sentimental items, the things from jobs we used to have or kids that used to be in our house. And so I thought it'd be helpful today if you could just talk us through a little bit. When we start to get hung up on the difficult stuff, what do we do?
So, you know, if people don't know me, they don't know that the reason why my strategies work for this kind of stuff is that I am the one with all the issues. Like, basically, I viewed everything in my home that way. Like, everything was sentimental. You know, even if it was sentimental in that I had felt this real rush when I had found it at a garage sale and imagined all the ways I was going to use it someday and how much money I was saving by, you know, grabbing it now when it was $2 instead of 50, like it might be if I ever actually needed it or whatever. So I had collected stuff with that mentality, but then my house got to a point where I could not keep it under control because it's just not my natural thing to, as Cass defines it, with the organizing styles. Like, I am not the person to put things into all these neat little spaces and enjoy that process. Instead, I just had literal piles in my garage where I had enjoyed collecting that stuff, but I couldn't even find it. I couldn't use it. So I had to work through so many things that represented who I thought I was going to be when I brought that into my house. And that was hard, you know? So it's like, yes, you can kind of get that first layer off. But even then, you know, that first layer can be overwhelming because you know what's coming later. And so it's like, I'd rather live in denial and just ignore all of it and pretend like it's not there, you know? So I had to figure out ways to work through it. So I have a decluttering process, and my decluttering process is basically how I ended up figuring out how to get stuff out of my house. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to think of this and then get stuff out. No, like as I just went through that, like I felt like I was ripping pieces of my heart out. As I got stuff out of my house, I started to realize, okay, it works when I do this. It works when I do this. And so a big part of my process is that I have removed emotions from decluttering because I feel so many emotions. I can't use emotions to declutter. I have to have like a very methodical system. Mm-hmm. So just a couple of examples that you can apply, you know, as you kind of get through the trash and get through the easy stuff, moving stuff to where it goes that's just out of place or whatever. And then you get to things, because I would always say, okay, I can get started, but then I get to where I'm just paralyzed by all these little things and I don't know where they go. Or, you know, it drove me crazy, still drives me crazy when people kind of solve all of your problems by saying, well, a place for everything and everything in its place. Like, that's just knowing that statement is supposed to change everything. And I'm like, there wasn't a place for everything. Like, I literally did not have the space for everything in my house. And so my two decluttering questions are, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? So I'm not focusing on the, will I ever need this item? Like, that's not, or does this item have value or usefulness? Instead, I'm just saying, if I needed it, where would I look for it first? And I already have it in my hand. And so the issue there is instinct. Like, actually, where would I go if I was going, oh my goodness, where's the screwdriver? You know, like, okay, where's the first place where I would go looking if my house was not chaotic? Because you can't get into the whole, well, I would look in the pile in the living room because that's where everything is. Like, I know, okay, we get that. But I'm like, where would I look first if the pile in the living room wasn't there. Okay. And then, and so that's instinct, and it freed me from having to analyze and think through and try to figure out what would my grandma have done? What's the best thing to do? It kept me from going and Googling, where should you keep your screwdriver? You know, I mean, cause that was where my brain used to go, is I could come up with all these possibilities. And so it's instinct based. It's literally where I would look for it first. I give myself permission to not feel guilty because it's not where my super organized friend would keep hers. Yeah. Instead, I just say, I'm going to put it in the first place where I would look for it, because then when I'm looking for it, it's in the first place where I looked for it. Right. Which is the goal of being organized, right, Cass? Yeah. To be able to find your stuff. And so I would, but then the key to that, which I know we're not necessarily talking about today, but just to let you know where we're going with things, but is to take it there right now. And to go put it there right now, because then that also means that at any point when I stop, like no matter what, whether I'm distracted, whether I get emotionally exhausted, because this is a really difficult process for a lot of us, whether I'm just like, okay, I'm done, I can't do anymore, this is too much. If I've taken it where it goes right now, then when that happens and I have to step away, or I just get distracted and don't even realize I've stepped away, I've only made progress. I've never made a bigger mess. I've never pulled everything out and made it, you know, worse than it was before, because it used to be shoved in a drawer and then I would pull everything out, and now it's out on the counter or in a box where it can sit for literal years or whatever in my house.
And Dana, I think, so this method that you've developed is the method that we all agreed that we were going to focus on in the course. And so what I think is so great in the course is that we were able to really break it down step by step in an actual closet and really take you through the steps, because I almost feel like it's something you have to do at least one time before it really clicks. Like before you're like, okay, oh, now I get what she's saying, and now I get why I would stop what I'm doing and go bring this out to the garage, you know, or whatever it is. And so I'm really glad that we got to spend a lot of time on it. And it was also helpful because Cass, you know, asked the tough questions. Well, Dana, I have ADHD. How is this possibly going to work? I'm going to leave this room and I'm never coming back, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, like, Cass, what was your experience with that? Because I get it. Like, as we've all diagnosed me now, I probably have ADHD too, but whatever. I'm diagnosed by everybody on the internet. But yeah, like, what was your experience with that? Like, how did it end up working? Because I get it. Like, I used to think through how things were going to work. But the problem was when I thought through how things were going to work, it made more sense to pull everything out. And then that never worked for me in real life, because I always ended up worse off than I was before, getting distracted. Like, it's going to happen every single time for me. And so this prevents that from happening. So what was your experience with your
I've just never decluttered that way, because for me, like, I don't have the same emotional attachment to things. So it's fast. I'm like racing through a project. And I guess I had a hard time understanding, like, people would say to me all the time, but now I'm overwhelmed and I've made a bigger mess. And I'm always like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Just, so it was, I feel like it's going to make me a better organizer now. It's going to make me able to help other people that I didn't realize were really struggling. And it is a slower approach. It's a slower approach that's just progress and no mess. And so that was really eye-opening to see. And I know that it'll help people who have struggled in the past. So if I'm like, do the 4-sort method and it's take everything out and then sort to keep, toss, donate, and you've tried that and failed, I apologize right off the bat. And this method will work for you.
Well, and however you, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, and then I'll ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, however you successfully declutter is how you should do it. But we're coming at this from, if you have not been able to be successful before, this is a way that is guaranteed to work. Yes, it's slower, but at the same time, that instinct base, there is such value in that, because you don't have to analyze. There is literally no analysis. It's where would I look for this first? And then the second decluttering question answers the issue that happens when you're like, and you don't have an answer for that first question. But if you answer that first question and you take it there now, you are done. You never have to think about that item again. It's just going to be in the first place where you look for it when you actually need it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then
here's a
somebody,
follow-up question.
Yes,
Oh,
sorry.
no,
I was going to do the follow-up question. Yeah.
So, and I just lost it, but it was basically, but what if, you know, every area in my house is packed with stuff. So I go to put the screwdriver away and there's no room for it, or that place is horrible. So now I think I need to work in there.
Yeah, that was me. I mean, every single space in my home was overwhelming. Everything was out of control. And so, again, it's that, I don't know if this is the right way to call it, but I call it like linear decluttering. We're just making progress. So whatever it takes to make progress. So what that means is I am focused on this space, and, you know, the decluttering supplies are already there, which the only supplies are a black trash bag, a donatable donate box, and then my feet are the other supplies. But I don't have any keep boxes or anything like that. So I take it to the place where I would look for it first. And if that place is out of control, all I have to do is create space to put this in. And if the space is out of control, I mean, I'm going to say there's a 150% chance, I make up numbers, but really, I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed there is something in that space that is either trash or a like, oh, well, of course I need to get rid of that because the space is out of control, right? And so I'm going to remove something. It doesn't have to be another screwdriver. It just needs to be something that would make the space for me to be able to put the screwdriver in that space. And then my donate box and my trash bag are back at the space where I was decluttering anyway. And so I take it back and I put them in those, you know, systems, those supplies that I already have there. And then I keep moving. But even if I get distracted, I've only made my house better. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, even if that's the only thing I do, it's that much better off, which, as long as you're getting stuff out into its final home, either trash, donate, or to the space where it's going to live forever, then, you know, you've made progress.
Yeah. And that's what I think was so like mind changing to me, was this idea that when you're working on a space and you turn around, there's no big piles, right? There's nothing behind you that then now stresses you out. Like, you're like, oh, the closet looks great. But then I turn around, I'm like, well, because everything's right there, right? And I still have to deal with it. And that's what I think has been so cool about really learning this method, is that if you get pulled away because you have kids, because the doorbell rang, your phone rang, you have, you know, whatever reason, like you said, Dana, progress, only progress, and you've made the space better than it was before, which I think is so cool. So there are a couple of questions about the course that I just thought we should answer real quick. There's been some questions about why isn't it lifetime access? So you get an access for a year. It's because we want you to be successful, and for all of us, you have to have some kind of deadline. If you give me lifetime access, I will take a lifetime to get to it. So you get access for 12 months. If you want to renew it, if you want to be able to go through it again, it's going to be a very nominal fee at the end of the year to have access to it again for another year. You'll get access to the private Facebook group that goes along with it. But that's why we chose to do that, because we really want you to be successful in this course. And then Cass, do you want to talk about the Facebook group that goes with it and what we'll be doing in there?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the Facebook group. You don't have to, well, you're probably on Facebook if you're online, but you don't have to be part of the Facebook group to get the added value. There's so much in the course, but this Facebook support group has literally thousands of people who are just like you, ready to start changing their life. It's supportive, it's inspiring, it's motivating, and we're also going to be walking you through each week a different area of your home. So we're not doing that in the course. The course is it's at your own pace. It's a broad understanding of the systems and how to change your life. But if you're looking for even more motivation and you want to join our team as we walk you through different spaces, the Facebook group is going to have that added value for you. So it's great. At
takeyourhouseback.com. Code earlybird20 for $20 off. We just extended it through the end of the weekend, but that's it. Like, we're not those people that are like, oh, we'll extend it again. No, midnight on Sunday Central Standard Time, that code expires. So we hope you sneak in before there. Dana, this is a really good question. what if I have something that I know I honestly need, but I don't know where I would look for it?
Okay, so if you cannot answer the question, where would I look for this first? Then you have to then you have to ask my second decluttering question, okay? And that is, if I needed this item, would it ever occur to me that I already had one? This is a reality check, okay? And this just is my way of going, I have to be realistic. I have to stop living in the fantasy world that makes my house be an out of control mess that I don't like, okay? So the question is, again, if I needed this item, would it ever occur to me that I already had one? Because the reality is, if I needed it and would not have a place where I would actually look for it, that's probably because it would never occur to me that I already had one. And if it would never occur to me, then the truth is I would either do without or I would go and buy another one. Mm-hmm. Both of those are completely valid options, okay? And the whole buy another one, I mean, that means I would have double the stuff in my house. My house would be that much more out of control because I would be bringing more stuff in while that sits there. And here it gets into the whole like, but what if I have to pay to replace that? What if, what if I mean, because it's happened to all of us. Like decluttering is sometimes like Christmas because you're like, oh, I forgot I had that. That's great. But if you had a place where you would go looking to see if you had one of those, then you've already taken care of that with the first decluttering question. This is for the stuff that you literally would never go looking for because you could not answer the question where you would look for it. So I had to use that question to just have a reality check and let things go. It needs to go in the donate box if I would never go looking for it. Now, I talk a lot more like in my books, and we talk about it in the course about kind of the reality there of just, what if I do have to replace it? Like, what if it is going to cost me $20 down the line to replace this? But the truth is I said, you know what, even if it costs me $20, and I think that the things that I was using, that I was, figuring these questions out as I was actually decluttering my home, were glow in the dark bracelets. It's like a 5-pack from the Dollar Tree. And I had needed to send them for my oldest kid when he was in kindergarten to his class. And the second kid was in kindergarten and he had the same teacher. And I was like, there is an actual 1 in 20 chance that the teacher is going to ask me to send glow in the dark bracelets for a similar project. And I realized, wait a minute, those are $1 at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to have to make, if she has me send those, like the reason why I want to keep these, because it feels so logical, is that I might actually need them. But I'm like, I'm going to have to drive to the Dollar Tree anyway to get the 4 other packages that I would need. And it would just be a matter of spending $1 more to replace these. And I'm like, oh, it's worth that $1 to me for this space to be decluttered between now and this hypothetical future time. Turns out I didn't have to send glow in the dark bracelets. I had to send pop rocks for whatever project they were doing. So anyway, so I didn't end up needing it, but the way I used to think, I would have held on to those because I'm like, no, there's a decent chance I'm going to need this again. But the truth was I didn't know I had it. If I hadn't been decluttering this space, I would never have gone looking for it because I wouldn't have known that it was in my house. And so it's like, no, I'm decluttering. My goal is to get stuff out, and I'm just going to be realistic and say, I wouldn't have looked for these. So
well,
then
sorry,
real quick, I hope you're realizing that like if you're like Dana, where you're like glow in the dark bracelets, hang me up. Like Cass would have tossed those a long time ago, right? But if you're like Dana, where it's like, no, everything's sentimental and everything, can be used.
Everything's valuable.
Yeah, this course is for you. Like this is like exactly where you need to be. Okay. So.
But the reality is the steps work for everybody, and other people can work through them faster than I can because they don't have all those sentimental hangups. And the other thing too is I have so many fewer hangups now because of my decluttering experience, because of working through, and yet I still use the same method because it lets me just go, yes, no, instinct, I'm done.
Exactly. Yeah. That's awesome.
What were you going to say, Cass? I'm sorry.
I want to answer a question that I keep seeing about photos. Can I?
Yeah.
I have the bestest photo. I'm going to grab a box. Okay.
Look at that skirt.
Okay. So organizing photos, it's so complicated. And when you have a lot of photos, it kind of sometimes can stop you from decluttering because you're so focused on like, well, I have to tackle the photos. I have to tackle the photos. So I want to show you a quick way that you can organize your photos in literal minutes. So I want you to go to the dollar store or Michael's and get photo boxes. They're under $2 for photo boxes. Some acid-free paper, which again is so inexpensive. You line your boxes and I want you to just pick 3 or 4 categories, like my mom's memories or like my, past ancestry memories, when my kids were little, now memories, right? 3 categories. And then when you're sorting your photos, you're just literally tossing them into those boxes lined with acid-free paper. You're labeling the outside and you're moving on. It just takes the pressure out of organizing photos. You don't have to put them in albums. You don't have to scan them. You don't have to go crazy. 3 little boxes. It's giving it a home. You know where it is. It's protected for life with the acid-free paper, and you can move on.
Yeah. Dana, those kind of look like containers, huh?
They do. They're a limit.
You want to talk about the container method real quick?
Sure. So, we go through the process. The 2 decluttering questions will help you work through any items. But the reality is, you may look for, you may have millions, I like to exaggerate, but maybe not, of photos in your house. And if the place where you would look for them first is in this one spot and you take them there now, there can come a point where that space does not fit any more photos. And so that's where the container concept comes in, which I love that, for me, it was like this, that's what organized people have been talking about my whole life when they talk about using containers. And I was like, I would get containers and they never worked that way in my house. But the 3 of us all have, and I have a podcast that came out, I think on Christmas Eve, where we talk through kind of each of us, how we think of containers and explain containers. So my basic thing is that I did not realize containers were limits. They are boundaries, and that having boundaries was very freeing to me.
Yeah.
It's just like children, you've always heard that story about when the playground doesn't have a fence, the kids all like huddle up in here, but then when the playground has a fence, they play all the way out to and there's just freedom in those boundaries. And that is the case. Like once I realized, I have this much space, like, so that photo box is perfect, but the fact that it's a limited space lets me go, maybe I don't need triples of every picture that I took in junior high, because I'm older than you guys, but with the 1 hour, I used to get triples.
Oh, I remember that. Double prints, man.
Because I wanted to give them to my friends, but then because it wasn't a digital camera back then, I'm really old, but anyway, but because it wasn't a digital camera, it was like, there were triples of my foot, of accidental pictures that I took and everything. And for some reason you're like, well, it's a picture and I have to keep it. But because that's a limited space, it naturally sorts out I can't, have it piled out. And so I'm like, of course these need to go. And there's something in my brain that shifts emotionally that lets me see it more as a mathematical thing as opposed to an emotional decision to get rid of pictures.
And that's funny to me, Dana, because you've said like, you're kind of rebellious, like, don't tell me what to do, right? Stop telling me what to do. But really that container is telling you what to do, and that works for you.
It does. But it's a container and not a person. Container has no feeling.
It's important too to have your categories predetermined when you're sorting, so that you're not just like, putting, and you're like, but wait, I still have so many more. Or you're taking one pile and making 20 small piles. No, don't do it. That just makes a mess. Yes. So never have more than 5 categories, right? So never more than 5. And you're like, I'm not sure which category this goes in. Look at your 5 categories and think, where's the first one I would look for this particular picture, and put it in that one. Don't overthink. Less is more when it comes to organization.
And the beauty of that is that's a fun thing to do. Like, that's fun. Because I love the excuse to look through my pictures, and then to know that they're already going to be sorted out so that the next time I look through them, it's just going to be for fun. Yeah. It's great. Awesome. I love that.
Awesome.
So is the box itself acid free, or it's just a normal, is it called a photo box?
I just get cheap, any kind of card or shoebox will work, but pictures tend to curl and brown over time. So if you get acid free, it looks like tissue paper. It's very cheap, and you line the box with it. You don't have to worry about your pictures.
Like Like
you know,
glue it in there, or you just lay it in there?
you just lay it like you're wrapping a present, lay it inside, and then that just keeps you don't even have to do that, but that just, if you are an overthinker, which some people are overthinkers, and they're like, I want to protect these pictures and I don't just want to put them in a box because what if they deteriorate over time? The acid-free paper lets go of that overthinking for you. They are protected now. You don't have to worry about it. They will not degrade. They will be great forever.
Well, and even if your ultimate goal is to get them into albums, start with this. At least they're organized and separated. Like, this is a great first step. And then if you have time, awesome. Like, go to town with it. But
and we use the same method for paper, and we do it in the course. The same method for organizing your photos is the same method for organizing old papers at takeyourhouseback.com. You can watch how we do the we do the same 5 categories, different categories, but 5 categories for sorting old papers. You're doing the same thing with photos.
Yeah, it's good. And I know people have asked, we're going to wind this up for today, but you know, people have asked like, well, do you cover addicts and do you cover sentimental things and my husband's stuff? And what's so cool is that once you get this decluttering method down, you apply it to every single thing that you can think of, and it works for every area of your house. And so that's what's kind of nice about it too, is like, you learn one method and you use it for everything, and it really does work really well.
And you get better at it. So that means that, you know, because it applies to everything, you're gonna look at things differently as you start to just think of your stuff in this way. And the other thing too with the husbands, because that comes up every single time, husbands, kids, whatever, the fact that it's non-emotional, the fact that it's fact-based, and you can ask questions that you let them answer based on instinct and facts, the realities of the space that you have, you know, would you ever look for it? Because of that, it works really well with other people, because it takes that power struggle. It takes that me judging your stuff. And then, you know, I can't explain why there are certain things that I absolutely love and want to keep. And if you try to make me explain it, you say, why would you want to keep this? I'm like, well, I'm just going to shut down right now because you don't get it. You don't understand me. Nobody understands. You know, that is what goes through my head. So anyway, so I have to have ways to get through things, but it works really well when working with other people too.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited for this new year. If you really need, I mean, are we just like ready to be like, catch you later 2020, right? And if you need some hope that things could be different in this new year, I really hope that you will join us. We know it's a little bit of an investment, but I think it's going to be worthwhile. I think you're going to feel encouraged. I think you're going to feel understood. And like, we get you. We are not going to judge you. We're not going to tell you what to do, but we're going to give you some awesome tactics and a support group around it that is going to work really well for you to take your house back in the new year. So takeyourhouseback.com, early bird 20 for $20 off. And we hope to see you in there.
Okay.